Assalamu alaikum and greetings from Australia. I'm Dr. Fatima Ashrafi, obstetrician gynecologist working in Australia, and I'm going to talk about COVID 19 and pregnancy today. Pregnancy is a time of great joy and hope for most women and their families. With COVID 19, it is natural that women will have anxiety about their own health and unborn baby. COVID 19 is topical, there is an overload of information, so I thought I will streamline some basic information about COVID 19 and pregnancy. As you all know, COVID 19 is caused by SARS CoV 2 and it was declared a pandemic by World Health Organization on the 11th of March 2020. So, COVID 2 or coronavirus is usually a veterinary pathogen, i.e., it affects animals, cats, dogs, birds, bats, pigs, cows, etc., and cause enteric disease in animals, usually diarrhea. Coronaviruses have been with us for quite some time. They are the usual cause of common colds, the usual runny nose that we all get time to time. In 21st century, 3 coronaviruses have crossed the species barrier to cause deadly pneumonia in humans. Those of you who remember, in 2002, we had the SARS-CoV-1, and then in 2012, we had the Middle Eastern Respiratory Virus, which is also a COVID virus. And now we have SARS-CoV-2, which started in 2019, continuing into 2020, and we are hoping that it will be better or would have disappeared by 2021. So data from the previous 2 coronavirus infections showed that pregnant women had increased miscarriage, increased preterm birth almost up to 35%. The babies grew small, and there was also fetal and neonatal death. The pregnant women required more ICU admissions, but the reassuring and the good thing is that there was no vertical transmission, i.e., transmission to the newborn. But the case fatality rate in SARS-CoV-1 and MARS was quite high. In SARS-CoV-1, it was about 10%, and in MARS, it was 35%. With SARS-CoV-2, the case fatality rate is much lower, 1.3 to 3%. Even then, many more people have died because it spreads easily and more people are infected globally. About 64 million cases infected with COVID-19 and more than 1.5 million deaths. In Australia, as of 1st December 20, there were 27,923 infections and 908 deaths. Now, I won't go into the pathology much, but I just wanted to say a few things, that the COVID virus enters the human cells by ACE2 and TMPRSS2. ACE2 is the enzyme or is the receptor responsible for control of blood pressure, and TMPRSS2 is essential in priming the SARS-CoV-2 protein for entry. I'm only mentioning it to explain why vertical transmission does not occur. Placenta does have some ACE2, but it does not have any TMPRSS2. That is why the placenta cannot get infected. So even if a mother has caught COVID-19, the virus cannot cross through the placental barrier to infect the baby. Also, COVID-19 has not been found in vaginal secretions or breast milk. We all know that COVID-2 mainly targets the respiratory system with severe pneumonia, ground-glass opacities, and acute cardiac injury. There are raised plasma cytokines which cause worsening of the disease activity. There is evidence that COVID-19 causes problems with blood clotting. 45% patients who died had widespread clots in lungs and in lung capillaries. These clots can damage lung, heart, kidneys, and can cause stroke. Till recently, all the data we had for pregnant women was from Wuhan in China and New York and Italy, which were hotspots for COVID-19. These data showed high incidence of preterm labor, and most deliveries were by cesarean section. Today, we have a much clearer picture compared to March this year, and a recent article published in the British Medical Journal gives an updated picture. In this article, we have a review of 77 studies investigating the effects of COVID-19 on pregnant women, and 13,118 pregnant women and 83,486 women of reproductive age with confirmed COVID-19 were in this study. So obviously, you can very much rely on the outcomes obtained from this study. So the common symptoms in COVID-19 are fever 40%, cough 40%, and the lab findings show low lymphocytes and raised reactive protein. In these studies, 73 women died, and of them, 13% were diagnosed with severe COVID-19. So 13%. Of this, 4% were admitted to ICU, 3% required invasive ventilation, that is endotracheal tube and everything, and 0.4% required extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. And these studies showed that pregnant women are more likely to be admitted to ICU and require invasive ventilation. The maternal risk factors for severe COVID-19 were increasing age, high BMI, hypertension, and pre-existing diabetes. Incidence of any preterm birth, preterm means being born earlier than 37 weeks, was 17%. 6% was spontaneous, and the rest of it was iatrogenic, i.e., the doctors had to deliver early because the mothers were very sick. And the infants born to these women were more likely to be admitted to the neonatal unit. So, in summary, pregnant women are a high-risk group. Any viral disease we know can be serious in pregnancy, such as the cytomegalovirus or the German measles, which is known as rubella. In non-pregnant adults, it is a very minor infection, but it can have serious consequences in pregnancy, like deafness, small head, etc. So, respiratory viruses can actually infect pregnant women quite seriously, because as part of pregnancy, the lungs don't work so well, there is increased oxygen consumption, increased cardiac output, and of course, decreased immunity. However, we are lucky that the studies have shown that COVID-19 does not, pregnant women are at high risk, but it does not infect so badly. So according to the guidelines from our College of Obs and Gynae in Melbourne, the Royal Australia and New Zealand College of Obs and Gynae, and the British College, and our own Queensland guidelines. I'm from Brisbane in the state of Queensland, and we have got very robust guidelines. So I'm going to summarize the guidelines, how we are supposed to take care of pregnant women in pregnancy. So antenatal care in first trimester, as I said already, there is no increased risk of miscarriage, no increased risk of any birth defects. However, we have to know that high temperature in the first 3 weeks of pregnancy from any cause, like COVID-19 or flu or even sauna or hot water bath, can cause neural tube defects, that is, defects of the brain and the spinal cord. For low-risk women, we have to follow the usual protocols of first trimester screening, that is a dating scan, and then at 12 weeks we either do a nuchal translucency scan or the NIPT test, where we test the maternal blood for any fetal anomaly. Then we do a big morphology scan at 18 to 20 weeks and a scan at 34 to 36 weeks to confirm presentation and amniotic fluid. The main emphasis is to reduce the face-to-face visits up to 3 to 4 visits, and most bookings are done by phone. It's important that pregnant ladies get the vaccination, the flu and the whooping cough vaccination. We also screen for diabetes mellitus. The risk incidence of gestational diabetes mellitus is about 7%, and it's usually done by a 2-hour oral glucose tolerance test. Our Queensland guidelines suggest that to reduce the time the woman spent in the lab, we can do a hemoglobin A1C with the antenatal bloods, and a hemoglobin A1C of 5.9% is diagnostic of GDM. And then at 24 to 28 weeks, we can do a fasting blood sugar. If less than 4.7, not diabetic, and if more than 5.1, it is diabetic. Okay, and every time you talk or see the patient, inquire about the mental health. Usually in pregnancy, perinatal mental health risk is 1 in 5, and the risk is increased in COVID-19. So inquiries should be made about mental health at every visit. Most hospitals here in Australia have a maternity mental health team, and then there are good resources, for example, PANDA, which stands for Perinatal Anxiety and Depression Australia. So what do we do in labor and delivery? The low-risk women, every woman who comes in for delivery, we screen them for symptoms like cough, fever, and international travel on a cruise ship, all that sort of stuff. And if all is good, then of course it's fine, but we still maintain the precautions of physical distancing, hand washing, and usually one support person is allowed. For pain relief, patient can mobilize, can have hot shower, can have morphine, can have Antonox or the nitrous oxide gas with filter. And if they want an epidural, we usually advise an early epidural to avoid emergency general anesthesia, which is aerosol generating. Some patients like to have hot showers and water immersion or even a water birth, which is all right if the local outbreak or there is no local outbreak. But if there is a high risk of community transmission like we had recently in Melbourne, then it is best to suspend water immersion or water bath. In the second stage, when the patient is delivering the baby, obviously there is high risk of exposure in the pushing phase because there is expulsive exhalation, there can be fecal contamination and droplet exposure to doctors and midwives. So the advice is to restrict medical personnel to the minimum people needed for delivery, and the person doing the delivery should wear a full personalized protective equipment, a fluid repellent mask and eye protection. The third stage is after the delivery of the baby. So we take the usual precautions, active management for delivery of the placenta, and usually these days we do delayed cord clamping, i.e. clamp the cord after 20 to 30 seconds for the baby to get some extra blood, and skin-to-skin contact, and we definitely encourage breastfeeding. So what do we do if the patient has got severe symptoms, like the patient has got COVID-19 or are very sick? We usually request them to inform us before coming in, and so that the team is ready. There is multidisciplinary assessment, the obstetric specialist, the anesthesia, the ICU doctors, the infectious disease specialist. And depending on the hospital, the location of care can be in ICU, in COVID-19 isolation ward, or maternity ward. In Australia, across all hospitals, in the metropolis as well as in the smaller regional hospitals, there is an isolation room to take care of this COVID-19 patients. COVID-19 patient, to be positive for COVID-19 is not an indication to be transferred to metropolitan hospitals. In Australia, you know that the transfer system is so well organized that with any slight problem, the patients from remote and regional hospitals are transferred to the big hospitals in the city centers. But COVID-19, mild COVID-19 itself is not an indication. So this patient who has got severe symptoms has come in, so we observe them closely, hourly observations. Young, fit women usually compensate quite well, but then decompensate very quickly. How do you know they're decompensating? The oxygen requirement increase to more than 4 liters of oxygen to maintain saturation at 94%. Respiratory rate goes high, more than 30 per minute. The urine output falls, the patient can be drowsy. And in such cases, we must give them oxygen supplementation to keep the oxygen saturation up to date. And dexamethasone can be given, 6 milligram daily IV or orally for up to 10 days in people who are needing oxygen. Chest imaging is very important and it should not be delayed for pregnancy. The safe limit for radiation exposure in pregnancy is 5 rads, and CT chest only gives 4.5 rad exposure. Timing of birth. Infection with COVID-19 is not an absolute indication to deliver. It depends on maternal and fetal well-being. However, as we know that very sick mother doesn't have time to go through labor, and delivering the baby will make treatment easier. And that's the reason for most of the preterm deliveries, the iatrogenic pre-deliveries, and very sick mother will not cope with labor and will need delivery by cesarean section. So postpartum, so far the largest experiences are from China and New York. Especially in China, the women had exclusively cesarean section births and were separated from their babies for 14 days and not breastfed or roomed in. However, the Royal Australia and New Zealand College of Obs and Gynae, the British College, and World Health Organization suggest that rooming in is possible for these mothers if strict precautions like mask wearing and hand washing are observed. No virus has been found in breast milk, but obviously a baby born to a corona positive mother is considered close contact of mother and requires 14 days of quarantine. So I would like you to remember some important points that even during COVID-19 era, all fever is not due to COVID-19. It could be due to other reasons, or it could be due to infection. Very recently, I had a baby. I had a mother with fever delivering at 30 weeks preterm labor, and that was actually because of ruptured membrane and infection or chorioamnionitis. Not all hypoxia is due to COVID pneumonia. It can be due to pulmonary embolism or other viral infections. But when a person has got COVID-19, of course, the lungs are affected, so we should maintain the fluid balance so that there is not extra fluid in the lungs, and give Clexane or anticoagulant unless immediate delivery is possible. If very early preterm, i.e. less than 30 weeks, then it is good to give magnesium sulfate to protect the brain, and it has to be given in a slower infusion. And as I already mentioned before, dexamethasone or steroid is good. It does reduce 28-day mortality by 36% in ventilated patients. So these days we do use dexamethasone. The other thing to remember is the anticoagulant. Pregnancy is a state of increased risk of venous thromboembolism or clotting, and then patients with COVID-19 have that extra risk because of activation of coagulation system through various inflammatory mechanisms. Then also the patient are probably spending time at home or from admission. During pregnancy, women are 5 times more likely to develop DVT, 65 per 10,000 from the normal risk of 2 to 5 per 10,000. And that's because of the hypercoagulable state of pregnancy, which evolved to protect women from excessive bleeding during miscarriage and childbirth. So pregnant women with COVID-19 definitely need anticoagulant, usually Clexane, but only thing we have to remember that antenatal Clexane may cause problems with delivery because you don't want a spinal hematoma for spinal anesthesia. So probably they should get heparin, or if you give Clexane, we should stop at least 6 to 12 hours before anticipated delivery. They definitely need Clexane postnatally. Here in Australia, we don't test every woman who comes to birth suite. We screen them for symptoms, and if only symptoms are positive, we test them for COVID-19. So far, no COVID-19 patient has delivered in Brisbane and north of Queensland or rest of Australia because of the strict measures imposed by our government. In Gold Coast, they have delivered a few patients, 3 I think, and 1 COVID positive patient was delivered by cesarean section in the early days, and baby separated for 14 days, but the second patient went to vaginal birth, and the mother breastfed with the precautions. After the second wave of COVID-19 in Victoria state, we are awaiting data. So again, as I re-emphasized early, transmission from mother to the baby, which is called vertical transmission, data from China, Italy, and New York have suggested no vertical transmission. That's because of that enzyme which I told you, which is not present in the placenta, and there is no COVID-19 found in vaginal secretion. So in summary, management, do not panic. In the early days, of course, there was a lot of panic and fear. There is always fear of the unseen and unknown. In mild cases, patient can recover at home. In moderate to severe disease, admit, consider a second infection like the flu or could be bacterial. And as so far we haven't got any proven treatment as yet, but hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin is promising and is usually given. Then remdesivir, which is antiviral, is usually given. And in severe cases, you can give immunomodulation to suppress inflammation, such as steroids, anticytokines, or even convalescent plasma, that is plasma from people who already had COVID-19. In Bangladesh particularly has shown some promising results with triple therapy using ivermectin, doxycycline, and zinc, but they are not safe to be used in pregnancy. Then the serious COVID-19 patients, if the patient is not improving, obviously we have to deliver them to improve the lung condition of the mother, and the mode of birth is usually cesarean section. So to talk about Bangladesh, Bangladesh is a country of 170 million people, annual birth rate of 3.1 million. Only 47% of births occur in a health facility. Since 2000, Bangladesh has accomplished a 50% decrease in maternal mortality, which is wonderful. But with COVID-19, the resources are really stretched. UNICEF predicted that in Bangladesh, an estimated 2.4 million babies will be born under the shadow of COVID-19, which puts enormous pressure on the health system. UNICEF is working with government of Bangladesh to save lives by ensuring that pregnant mothers and newborn babies receive the required care. The NGOs or non-government organizations are also helping, and I must mention one such organization, which is Hope Foundation for Women and Children of Bangladesh, mainly working in the Cox's Bazar district in Bangladesh. The founder of Hope Foundation is a doctor called Dr. Iftikhar Mahmood, who is based in Florida, USA. The foundation opened Hope Hospital, a 40-bedded maternity and fistula hospital in 2005 in Cox's Bazar. It has also opened a field hospital in the Rohingya refugee camp, giving maternity services to the Rohingya women. In April last year, 2019, 15 volunteers from Global Medical Foundation Australia partnered with Hope Foundation to provide medical and surgical care to Rohingya refugees and the local community in a week-long mission. And I was part of that mission, and I was impressed by the wonderful work the Hope Foundation is doing. So in Bangladesh, we do need to try and provide care along the RCOG and the RANCOG guidelines and emphasize using all methods of communication, social media, radio, television, word of mouth, to seek medical care early. We ask the women that if they live in affected or high-risk areas, or if they have fever, cough, or difficulty breathing, they should go to the hospital early. During the antenatal time, the pregnant women and their caretakers, in Bangladesh, often pregnant women don't make their own decision. Either the husband or the family makes the decision. Sometimes, in collaboration with the pregnant woman, they should ask their midwife or doctor where is the safest place to give birth, and have a birth plan in place and make sure they get to the place in time. As I said, there is fear of the unseen. So in the early days, we did hear reports of pregnant women moving from hospital to hospital who were not taking the patients. Can you imagine how cruel it can be for a pregnant woman who is about to give birth to move from hospital to hospital, or to go from hospital to hospital and being refused admission? Thank God the situation is much better now, as I hear from our doctor colleagues who are working in Bangladesh. So breastfeeding is to be encouraged, and we should provide medical support, the usual immunization, and contraceptive advice to be continued after birth. So in conclusion, COVID-19 is a new virus that never existed before. It presents lots of challenges.